Welcome to Rockline on MTV, where you get to talk to your favorite artists live. Call us up. Our toll-free number is 1-800-344-ROCK, and that's 344-7625. If your call gets on the air, you will receive a box of 10 CD audio tapes from Sony Recording Media designed to match the length and quality of your CDs. Now, my guests today for this special one-hour edition of Rockline are, live from our Rockline studio in Madrid, Spain, Michael Rutherford, Tony Banks, and Phil Collins, collectively known as Genesis.
Is anybody listening? Oh, not at all. Here's the lonely man there on the corner. What is waiting for? I don't know. Tell me, do you think I'm to blame? Me too, you're never there. We show it, you stop and stare. Our cat isn't anywhere. This is the time, this is the place, so we look for the future. But there's not much love to go around. Tell me why this is a land of confusion. But just as I thought it was going all right, I found out I'm wrong when I thought it was right. It's always the same, it's just a shame, that's all. You know, son of mine. You know, son of mine. You walked out, you left us behind.
Okay, well, here's what's going on tonight. I'm in Los Angeles. The guys in Genesis are in Madrid, so there's a lot of satellite bouncing literally around the world. So everybody, if we all just remain calm, try to keep our conversation concise so we don't step on each other and have that awkward delay. If you're waiting on the phone, be sure to turn your television down. And because we're satelliting everywhere, and they're in Madrid, now I'm in LA, we're going to show you a classic Genesis video, and we'll get it all together for you. This is the international edition of Rockline on MTV. And with that, Genesis's Grammy Award-winning video, we are underway with Rockline on MTV. And why don't we get right to the phones? If you guys are ready, what time is it there for you?
4:05 in the morning.
Are you staying up late or getting up early?
We're not sure.
We
haven't decided.
It's a split decision at the moment.
Split decision, and there's three of them there. This is going to be a fun hour. Okay, Debbie is starting us off. Debbie, you may speak to Genesis in Madrid from Watsonville, California. Go ahead, what's your question?
Buenos dias, amigos.
Buenos dias.
Most of the tracks on this album seem longer than they have been in the past. What I was wondering was, did you have to hold back or trim down any of the tracks to fit the album?
No, we didn't have to sort of trim down anything at all, really. I mean, we've done lots of long tracks in the past. It depends how far back into our sort of dim and distant past you want to go, because we had a 25-minute track back in 1972. But I think the thing was, we felt on this record, because we were sort of principally doing a CD, which is sort of, we got 70 minutes of music on this album as opposed to, say, the 50 on Invisible Touch. And we felt we didn't have to restrict ourselves in the same way as perhaps we had to on Invisible Touch, so we can, you know, let the songs stretch out a little. So you've got a couple of tracks over 10 minutes on this one.
You mentioned that it's a CD. Do you still tend to think in terms of side one and side two?
No, that's one of the first big changes, really, because, you know, when you have a cassette, you can actually change, you know, you have a sort of beginning of side one, end of side one, and then you have a beginning of side two and an end of side two. But with a CD, you've got to think of the whole thing in its entirety, and so, of course, you know, some people won't listen to the whole thing all in one go, so it's kind of a different mentality, but we'll get used to it.
Well, Debbie, thank you very much for your call, and we go now to Matthew, who's calling from Palm Bay, Florida. Hi, Matthew. Welcome to the show, and what's your question?
How you doing? How you doing, Tony, Bill, and Mike? My question is, driving the last bike. I was curious, what inspired you to write that song?
Well, I wrote the lyrics to it, but of course the music, as all the songs on the album, you know, is written by the three of us. Well, it was kind of, the working title was Irish for this piece, and I guess because of the working title and some of the lyrics that I was improvising at the time when we were writing the thing, kind of pointed me in a direction where it might be a nice idea to sort of base something on a story, which was actually in a book that I had about groups of people called the navvies, which were the people that built the English railroads in the early 1800s. And it just seemed a nice idea to sort of try and write a story from the point of view of someone that was leaving his family and going off to work on these gangs. There was no safety precautions, and lots of people died. That really wasn't, you know, that knowledge wasn't publicly known, really, because it was such a sort of small community. But it just seemed an interesting idea at the time.
Well, there you go, Matthew. Thank you for asking that question. I was actually wondering that myself. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back. The toll-free number, and it's good that it's free because it's long distance to Madrid, is 1-800-344-ROCK, and that's 7625. Our guests tonight for a full hour are Genesis.
Coming home tonight. My generation will put it right. We're not just making progress.
Welcome back to Rockline on MTV, and my guests today, live via satellite from Madrid, Spain, are the members of Genesis. If you have a question, the number is, and it's toll-free, 1-800-344-ROCK. Well, they have a brand new album out that just hit the stores today. It's called We Can't Dance, and we've got a special hour edition of Rockline where we're taking your phone calls, and we're going to get right into it right now with Jim, who's calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Jim, you're on with Genesis.
Hey, Tony, Phil, and Mike. You guys are the greatest. I'll get right to my question, since we have this satellite echo here. I'm sure you must listen to each other's solo albums from time to time. So I'll ask Tony, what's your favorite album of Phil's? And Phil, what is your favorite album of Mike's? And Mike, what is your favorite album of Tony's?
I love rock, and they're all so fantastic, you know.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, they're really fantastic. Actually, in fact, I think my favourite of Phil's albums was Hello, I Must Be Going. I had it in the car for a long time, and I liked it a lot. I liked Through These Walls particularly, and I Don't Care Anymore, and some others. Yeah,
Okay.
but I like them all. Really.
Babe, I didn't realize.
Thank you, Tony. Phil, you're up.
Okay, well, I think I was asked whether I like what album I liked of yours. Because I have a big soft spot for Acting Very Strange, because Mike sang on that. And I'm a great believer in the singer singing the song that he writes. And I thought Mike did a great job on that. So, although I'm a big fan of Paul Carrick as well.
Who have I got to talk about?
You've got to talk about him, I think.
Oh, no. I think The Fugitive is my favourite album, but I love them all. I love them all. It's a beautiful thing.
Jim, that was a really good question. I feel like it's Bachelor number 1. If you were to rate Bachelor number 2. Now, with your album, We Can't Dance, I know that you make it a point, Genesis does, to break new ground. What new ground have you broken, and are you excited about on the new album?
Well, I think it's, for us, it's always the best thing we've done. That's a natural saying. But I think on this album, there's one or two new songs that definitely cover new ground. I mean, like Tony said, having 70 minutes gives us the chance to really do some of the long songs and stretch out. And a good example is the song I Can't Dance, which for us, it's a very different kind of song. It was called Blue Jeans. It was sort of initially reminded us of a Blue Jeans commercial. And we recorded it in about 2 or 3 hours and filled out the lyrics in about 2 or 3 minutes. And it's just a different way of doing it. It wasn't a song that was written, it was like a sort of a groove, which we thought we'd try and record, and it'll either sound great or it won't happen at all. And that for us is a whole new way of working. That's just one example, I think, of something different for us.
When you write, you come together and basically improv your way to the material on the album, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And so you have got We Can't Dance, and we're going to get into the phone calls. Mark has joined us from Lebanon, New Hampshire. Mark, what's your question?
Good evening, Martha, gentlemen. My question I'd like to ask you is, when Peter Gabriel left Genesis, how was it decided that Phil would sing lead vocals?
Well, we couldn't find anybody else. That was the original reason why. We did audition lots of people at the time.
Makes me feel very special. It's beautiful.
Yes. Well, we auditioned lots of people at the time, and to be honest, nobody really sounded quite right. We had one person we thought might do, and he came into the studio with us. But we tried him on the song Squonk, which was on the album Trick of the Tail, which was the first one we did without Peter. And it didn't sound good, and I think the problem with that really for the poor guy was it was pitched far too high for him, and he couldn't cope with it. Anyhow, after that, Phil was always going to sing a little bit. And then once we couldn't find anyone else, then Phil started doing the singing, and we realised it was actually going to sound really good with him, and we needn't look any further, and so we didn't.
And the rest is history. Thank you, Mark. Let's go over to Blue Island, Illinois, and welcome Doug to the show. Hi, Doug. What's your question?
Hi, I'm a really big Genesis fan. I wanted to know what your touring plans are for this album.
Well, we're going to go on tour next year, probably starting around the middle of May, and it won't be a long tour. It'll probably go through to the end of July, beginning of August, taking in America and Europe. There's some countries we won't be going to, and we'll be playing stadium shows. I think we all felt that with Invisible Touch, the tour was very long. You know, it was almost like 10 months to a year, and we've all got families. We don't want to be away from home for that long. There's other things we want to do, and yet we still want to go on the road. So this seems like a kind of a happy compromise. So we'll be out in May in answer to your question.
How has touring changed? You guys are going on your third decade of going out on the road. How has it changed for you over the years?
Third decade, eh? Yes, you're right. Well, basically, I mean, you know, the early days, it was the tour was very slow. We'd have a lot of days off, and we saw an awful lot of America as tourists. It was fantastic. Now the tours, obviously, we're into the bigger places. We're playing the stadiums at the moment because there's no answer really. You either play a small theatre and no one sees you, or you play a stadium and they see a small you.
No problem.
But for us, I mean, I like to think that over the years our live performances have improved. I mean, I know each time we listen to the tapes from the tour before and compare it to the new tour, I'm always pleased because I think the sound always does seem to improve. The biggest change really has been the size of gigs, I think.
They'll be doing gigs in May of 1992. Look for them in a stadium near you. You're watching Rockline on MTV from Madrid, Spain. My guests are Genesis, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Rockline on MTV. If you've got a question for Genesis, our toll-free number is 1-800-344-ROCK, and that's 344-7625. If your call gets on the air, you'll receive a box of 10 CD-IT audio tapes from Sony Recording Media designed to match the length and quality of your CDs. This is the brand new Genesis album. It is called We Can't Dance. There have been 3 Genesis live albums in the past, the last one being 3 sides and a half. What was that one called again?
3 Sides Live.
3 Sides Live. Are you due for another live album? Will you be recording this tour, possibly?
Well, we might do. I mean, we haven't really planned that far ahead yet because it's quite a while before we go on the road. And I'm sure that at some point during the 3 or 4 months we'll record it video-wise or audio-wise. It's possible. It is possible.
All right, we're going to get into the phone calls, and we're going to go to New York, Binghamton specifically, where we have Deanna on the line. Hi, Deanna. Say hello to Genesis.
Hey, Genesis. I just want you guys to know that I think that you are the best band on the face of the earth, and you probably always will be. Okay, here's my question. I'd like to know what inspired you guys to write the song No Son of Mine, and who wrote the lyrics?
Well, musically, we kind of, as I said before, you know, all the music you hear, especially on the last 3 albums, have really been born out of improvisation. You know, we go in the studio with nothing written, and we just start playing, and over a period of weeks, and in this instance 2 months, it took us to write all the songs. The lyrics are then divided, you know, we kind of take songs that we want to write lyrics for, and with No Son of Mine, I wrote the lyrics to that. The chorus came kind of spontaneously while we were writing the music, and so that gave me a direction to write the words, really. And the song is it's kind of obvious what it's about, but it's for those that don't know it, it's a teenager that leaves home because there's abuse in the family. I don't know whether it's sexual, emotional, or physical abuse, but his father is abusing him or his mother, and he just can't handle it anymore and leaves home. And eventually he comes home, comes back to see his family, and hoping that his father's changed, and his father hasn't changed at all. Doesn't even realise he's the problem, and that is the story of the song. But it's inspired, really. I mean, the chorus came out of the blue, and you just sort of followed the direction that took him.
And in fact, that is also the video that we have, and we are going to take a look right now on Rockline on MTV at the brand new Genesis video, No Son of Mine. No Son of Mine from the just-released album We Can't Dance for Genesis, and not the expected happy ending at the end of that video that you would expect. Who did you work with that video on?
We used Jim Euclid and Paul Flattery, who we've used for quite a long time, actually. They work out of Los Angeles. And I think one of the good things about Jim and Paul, if you're watching, guys.
Hi, guys.
It's going to get me brownie points, is the fact that they're very good at sort of wearing different hats. I mean, if you know, some directors are very good at one sort of video and not the others. Whereas Jim and Paul, I think, can actually cover, if we say we want it to look like this or have a different fit, that sort of feel, they can actually cover, I think, nearly all kind of sorts.
So they can accommodate the visual idea that you had initially.
Sorry, Michael?
Missed that.
I just said, so they can accommodate the visual idea that you had initially.
Exactly.
That's what I meant to say.
Sasha, thank you for joining us. Sasha's calling from Saratoga, California, and he has got a question. What's your question, Sasha?
How's it going? I've got a couple questions, actually, like a two-part question. Do music videos affect your songwriting? And what do you think about music videos' effect on the recording industry, current trends?
Well, music videos don't affect the way we write songs at all. I mean, we write songs, we've always been first and foremost as songwriters, and we don't really think about any other aspect of it at the time we're writing of it. We don't even think about the sort of, we don't think about performing it live or anything like that, and we certainly don't think about videos. I think what they've become, music videos, I mean, I think it's unfortunate they've become quite as important as they have been. I have to be careful here, don't I? I'm on MTV. No, I think that it's just for my own personal taste, put it like this. I like the fact that music is quite an abstract sort of art form, and you can make up your own mind about the things that you want to sort of visualize while you're hearing a song. And so for my own taste, I prefer that. But that's not to say that you can't do some very good videos as well. You know, some people do some great little videos. But I don't think one wants to get stuck with just that one image of the song from forever afterwards, once you've seen it.
Sasha, you had a two-part question?
Was kind of the second part. What he thinks about the trends, you know, and so on with the videos that are being released today.
I think what happens is, or what can happen, is that you get some songs which wouldn't otherwise have been hits because the video is good, and I think that is kind of on a regular basis that kind of sort of becomes a little bit self-defeating. I think there's one thing, you know, that when there's a good song and there's a good video, then that's great. When there's a good video with an average song, or you know, then I think that's when the medium starts to fall down.
Okay, Sasha, you tapped into a keg o answers there. Thank you for the call. Let's move on to Miami, Florida, where Beth is waiting. Hey, Beth, how's it going?
Hi. I've been a huge fan of Genesis for several years now, and my question is for Tony. I read in the Columns Connection, which is a Genesis newsletter, that you're recording an album called Still, and I wanted to know why it wasn't released in the U.S., and will it be released in the future here?
He loves this kind of question, guys. He loves this kind of question.
Well, in fact, this album is going to be released in America. We're going to release it, I think it's coming out in March. It's coming out on the Giant label in America. I think we thought for a change this time what we'd do, rather than always releasing my solo albums at a time when Genesis is not doing anything, and I have a tough time trying to remind everyone who I actually am. So this time we thought we'd try and release it during a period while Genesis is actually, hopefully, got something that's sort of happening at the same time. So people, I can, you know, get onto the radio stations to talk about Genesis, and then I can slip a couple of my own tracks in, and maybe we'll get somewhere from that. So there's every intention of releasing the album, you know, but it's just being delayed a bit.
For all of you, you've all been involved in solo projects. Is it hard going from the person who's basically in control to being part of a democracy?
No, I don't think we find it hard at all. I mean, I think if we found Genesis sort of constricting and not the freedom we have, then I think we would find it hard. But and I mean, the other thing also is that in a sense you want to go through that. I mean, Genesis is really about the three of us sitting in a room, composing, recording, and writing together, and you actually want to work with the other two guys. So that makes the whole process easy. And I think it's helped by the fact that when you do solo stuff, you're able to actually be the leader, take charge, and finish the songs the way you want it to do. So the contrast with Genesis is good.
Okay, and we have time for one last phone call before we take a break, and it comes to us from Fresno, California, and it's Jim. Hi, Jim. What's your question for Genesis?
Hi. What is the music scene like in London?
I don't know. We're in Madrid. Well, I don't know. You know, it's kind of weird. We don't listen to a lot of music. You know, when you're involved in it as much as we have been anyway in the last sort of 6 months. You know, we've been involved in what we've been doing. We've been making this album. We've been writing it. We've been mixing it. We've been, you know, doing everything that getting the cover for it, doing the video. So you end up when you go home at night, being with the family and just sort of watching a bit of TV. You know, like, or if you listen to the radio, you put on a bit of talk radio. I mean, I've got a stack of things that I want to listen to, but I just haven't had the time to listen to them yet. So I don't know. It's I'm not the person to ask.
Well, thank you for the call. We're going to take a break, and the toll-free number is 1-800-344-ROCK, and that's 7625. Our guests today are from Madrid, Genesis.
All that time I was searching, nowhere to run to. It started me thinking, wondering what.
Welcome back to Rockline on MTV. My guests tonight, live via satellite from Madrid, Spain, are the members of Genesis. If you've got a question, we're here for a whole hour, so there's still more time. The number, and it's toll-free, is 1-800-344-ROCK. During the break, we were just kind of teasing Tony because I was telling him that I read an interview where he said, in fact, that he doesn't like to dance. Tony, are you responsible for this track, I Can't Dance, and really thus the title track?
No, not really. I mean, the title, the song I Can't Dance comes from, we talked before about this being a sort of something to do with the Blue Jeans commercials, and it's really a song about the kind of people who act in these commercials, and it was probably more a thought that perhaps they couldn't do anything other than walk. They just had this walk that's so good, and they couldn't dance, couldn't sing, and perhaps do not much else. But we took the title, the We Can't Dance, as the title of the album a bit because I think because the charts are very full of dance music, as I'm sure people have observed, and kind of we don't really do that. Not that you can't dance to someone's music, you can, but it isn't there sort of really as dance music, and so what we do is something slightly different. And so if you want to hear something slightly different, here's this album, We Can't Dance, you know.
Do you think music, Tony, has gotten more percussive than it has, popular music?
So it's got more percussive?
Yes. Tony, I'll ask.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I think in a way that's, if I have a criticism against dance music, and I wouldn't generalize, but there's an awful lot of it right now. It's just very rhythmic, which is fine sometimes, but it's kind of groove and nothing else. I think there's a lack of good melodies. And when you find a dance song that's actually got a good rhythm track and a good melody on top, or something happening on top that's interesting, and not just groove, then I think it always does well. And those are the ones I like. It's the ones that are just sort of straight drum machine groove, 3 chords, and a few sample voices.
We're speaking with Genesis, and they're in Madrid, Spain, if you're wondering, if you're just tuning in, why we have this funny delay. And we'll get into the phone calls. We have Elizabeth, who's waiting on the line from Miami, Florida. Hi, Elizabeth. What's your question?
Good evening. First, I just wanted to say thank you. I've never found a song that has touched my heart and helped me identify with a relationship that I had with one of my parents as no son of mine has, and I just wanted to thank you. And my questions are, how do you go about choosing songs for tours with such a vast catalog, and how much from the new album should we expect in concert?
Well, we start with the new album, basically. I think we'll rehearse it all and see what sounds good. Already in our mind, there are 1 or 2 tracks that we're not sure will come off quite right, but we'll try them all, I think, because they're potentially all very good live songs. And then we'll start by working our way backwards. And we'll choose probably a fair amount from the last 3 albums, but we're thinking about doing a kind of a medley that goes back and does some sections of a lot of the older songs, because people like to hear it, and we like to play it, but maybe not the whole song.
Are you going to do a rock and roll tribute medley like you did on the Invisible Touch tour?
Well, it could be time to retire that for a little while, I think. And we've been doing it now since, well, probably since we started doing Turn It On Again, so it's probably about 10 years or so, but we may do, you know. I think a lot of people scratch their heads during that part of the show and say, what the hell are they doing? Because, you know, they don't quite understand that those songs are kind of relevant to us. The reason we started writing music and the reason we started playing music was because of Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, and all those guys, you know, the Four Tops and Motown and things. So, you know, it's relevant to us, but I mean, it might just be time for a little bit of a rest. There's only so many times I can put on the old hat and sunglasses and sort of do it with conviction. Maybe it's time to change.
Well, we will see that tour in May, stadium tours here in the U.S. And we've got another phone caller on the line, Henry, who's calling from El Paso, Texas. Henry, what's your question?
Buenos dias, Phil, Tony, and Mike. My question is, how was it that the music video Land of Confusion come about using the great artistry of the puppets?
Well, the idea, actually, again, this was Jim Yukich's idea to ask the Spitting Image people if they'd be willing to do the thing, and they seemed into the idea. I mean, the song "Land of Confusion" sort of lent itself to the kind of their approach to. I mean, over here, I don't know how much you've seen of their program in America, but obviously in England, I think it was kind of well-known program as a sort of political satire. And the song obviously was had a kind of simple political message which would come across very well in that way. And we wanted to do a video that didn't involve us, actually. It's nice to... I mean, notice that the video that we got a Grammy for was the one that we're not in. And I think there's a lot of... that could lead somewhere, actually. Maybe we should do it again.
It's the record we don't make that will win the Grammy.
That's right.
Okay, you're watching Genesis. It's Rockline on MTV. They're in Madrid. I'm in LA. You're on the phone, hopefully somewhere, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Rockline on MTV, where we have been spending the past hour with Genesis. We have a bit more time. The toll-free number is 1-800-344-ROCK, and that's 344-7625. I should mention, if your call gets on the air, you'll receive a box of 10 CD-IT audio tapes from Sony Recording Media designed to match the length and quality of your CDs. You guys have been together unbelievably over 20 years. Tony and Mike, you've known each other since you were teenagers. We know you've obviously figured out a way to get along, but there must be some things that make you guys fight. What are they?
Yeah, well, I wish I could tell you. To be honest, these days we don't fight very much. I mean, when there were 5 in the band, and we were younger and I guess kind of more hot-headed, and we used to argue about such unimportant things. We'd be making a record and we'd fall out over, you know, who had the buzz or little things that just didn't really matter. Nowadays, and I didn't attack you with a chair once.
Oh yeah.
I went off to Tony, we disagreed about who did an encore. And I went for him with the chair, and I missed. But I think this day and age, we don't tend to argue. I think we kind of feel it's such a waste of time arguing, and when we work together, which is not so often now, there's so much to do that we want to do musically, we don't waste our time.
All right, and we're going to get into the... You don't have to cross your fingers. That was a good answer.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I can see you. You can't see me. And Jason can see us all, and he's watching from Peoria, Illinois. Hi, Jason. What's your question?
Hi, guys. I'm Martha. Can't believe I'm talking to Genesis. Okay, I have a two-parter for you. First of all, do you feel that your lyrics and music are getting more complex as the years go by?
No, not really. I think the music, I mean, a lot of people think our music's got a lot simpler. And in some respects, it's got a little simpler, but generally, I think it's just more direct. I think in the old days, we used to have a point and then disguise it as much as possible, so people wouldn't get it. And now we're a bit more direct with what we're saying. I mean, there have been songs, for instance, about social issues in Genesis history, although people really sort of relate to Land of Confusion as being the first time we sort of had a social conscience. And in fact, there were songs on earlier albums that dealt with situations like that. Lyrically and musically, we've just got a bit more direct.
Thank you very much, Jason. And we're going to take a call now from Jessica, who's calling from Davis, California. Jessica, you're on. What's on your mind? Jessica, do you have a question?
Come on, Jessica, don't be shy.
Well, I guess we'll just move on along. We'll go all the way to the other coast. We'll see if we have better luck in New York. We've got Louie calling from Bayside. Hey, Louie, what's up?
Hi. I just want to say your album is great. You guys keep on getting better. Each time you make a new album. Well, I just want to know, are you planning on bringing out a CD box, a box set of, your greatest hits?
Not well. We never really planned to sort of to do anything. We kind of think of the albums a bit as sort of totals in themselves, and we don't really like the idea of breaking up the albums and taking a bit off this and a bit off that. It's not to say we'd never do it, but it's something we don't particularly want to do, I don't think. I mean, we might package the albums together, you buy 3 at a time, things like that.
Oh, your album.
Brilliant. Yeah, put my album in there, so when no one's looking. No, the only other album we've ever considered that we might do at some point is something that includes all the tracks that have never been included on any major album. We've got lots of tracks over the years, which sort of B-sides and extra tracks and EPs and things. And it would be quite fun to put them all on an album. That would be a pretty long album now, actually, probably be a double album. Even on this record, for example, we've got 2 tracks that we've recorded that are not on this album. And so, and they'll probably come out as B-sides or something soon. But at some point we'll do that album.
But that's a good idea. Genesis Rarities. Thank you, Louie. And we've got Rusty on the line who's calling from Plano, Texas. Hey, Rusty, what's your question?
Hi. I've been a big fan of yours since I was 5 years old, and you guys have been my best friends ever since. I have 2 questions. Number one, could you tell us the names of those B-sides that were cut from the album?
Well, yes. Yeah, I don't see why not. One of them...
Secret, sorry.
One of them's called On the Shoreline, and the other one we ended up calling it what? Hearts on Fire?
Hearts on Fire, yeah.
Yeah. On the Shoreline is a good track.
So's Hearts on Fire.
Yeah, they are. Actually, they're both good tracks. Yeah.
And what's the second part before they start arguing? They're about to fall out.
See, now we found out the answer. What makes you fight?
Yeah.
Well.
We had a slight disagreement over which 2 songs to leave off, if any. And, but we, 2 against 1.
These are one of these disagreements that you really wanted to know about earlier, Martha. It's just that sometimes we don't agree on everything. But like we're man enough to sort of back down occasionally. And Tony was man enough to back down on this particular instance.
I'm kind of disappointed, though, Michael. I would like to have seen a chair go flying. Just would have been good TV.
Plenty of time for that.
Okay, Bobby, how are you doing tonight? Bobby's calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining us. And what's your question?
Thanks, Martha. I am so nervous, I'm shaking.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask the guys which singles surprised them the most, as far as which ones they thought were going to do well that didn't, and the other way around.
I think the one that surprised me the most was Mama. I'm not sure about in the States, but in England, it was a 6-minute song, and it was not the kind of thing you imagine a hit single is made out of. And it was a big success in England and Europe. And it's great also when a song has got a lot of substance and is a little bit different, like Mama does that well. Any other ones surprised you?
Well, Invisible Touch, you know, it was our first #1 in America, but yeah, in England, it didn't do anything at all. It kind of, you know, it was 12 or something. We don't really have many hit singles in England. We've kind of been more of an albums band, I guess, since we began. But that was a sort of one that we thought might have done it, but didn't. But it did in America, so.
I think one song that I was always sad wasn't a hit single was the song Duchess, because it's one of my favourite of our songs, and released as a single sometime, must have been off the Duke album, so sometime after Misunderstanding, and it didn't really take off anywhere. It was a much liked song, I think, of ours, but it just didn't seem to work as a single, which is a pity because I think it's one of the strongest songs we've ever done.
And with that, we thank you all for calling, and thank you guys for staying up now. It's 5 o'clock in the morning for you.
Don't tell us.
It is, that's true.
And where are you off to now?
Sorry.
What?
Yes, we're all off to Tony's bed.
The band that sleeps together, plays together. That is it for this edition of Rockline on MTV. Again, thank you to Genesis. Next week, Richard Marks, and we'll see you then.